Hello and welcome to In Focus. My name is Ashim Kumar. Together with our reporters, we've prepared stories about unique initiatives and the individuals behind them. This week, Poland celebrates the 80th anniversary of the outbreak of the Warsaw Uprising. It's a symbol of the Polish struggle for independence and the ruthlessness of the German occupation of Poland. I invite you to a reportage about the unbroken spirit of the capital of Poland, Warsaw.
The Warsaw Uprising is remembered as a heroic event that led to a savage German retaliation, which involved torturing the inhabitants of the city and killing 200,000 people. None know this nightmare better than those who saw it with their own eyes.
I saw German soldiers shoot at an infant. I can understand shooting at another soldier who's an enemy. I can understand shooting at an adult Pole, a man or a woman. But at an infant? I consider it barbarity.
Wielding little aside from minor arms, the Polish soldiers faced well-equipped German units.
Naturally, we took a large supply of grenades and Molotov cocktails rather than rifles. When the tanks pulled up, we knew full well that coming behind them was the German infantry. First, we threw the grenades, then the Molotov cocktails, and then the tank caught fire.
The enthusiasm of the first days of the uprising quickly turned into a nightmare for the whole city.
German response meant mass murders of civilians. The most well-known is the Wola district massacre. But from the start, the Germans treated the uprising as an act of banditry. According to their interpretation of international law, the insurgents were bandits. So, wherever shots were fired at regular troops, they felt entitled to retaliate.
The Germans saw everything to the east of their borders as the so-called Lebensraum for their people. That's why their brutality was higher in Poland and other Eastern European countries than in Western Europe.
The key thing about Nazis was their racial ideology, and Poland was the first country to be racially rebuilt, reconstructed. The destruction of unwanted elements, like the Jews, but not only the Jews, like the Polish intelligentsia was slated for destruction.
The war turned the Polish capital into a sea of ruins. Afterwards, it rose like the mythical phoenix from the ashes. This leaves its center architecturally inconsistent. Some of Warsaw's original parts were rebuilt, some were remade in a style influenced by communism. All this is overlooked by monumental skyscrapers.
The Warsaw of today looks completely different to the one from 80 years ago. Some uprising insurgents have been very frank with us about them not even daring to believe that Warsaw could be reborn, and that it would become such an incredible city after 8 decades.
80 years after the Warsaw Uprising, the city still carries the scars from those harrowing events. One of the places where the story of these 63 fateful days is told in a concise but entertaining way is the Warsaw Uprising Museum. This place is an absolute must-see for all the people who come to Warsaw and want to learn more about this city's Second World War history. And with hundreds of thousands of visitors each year, this is one of the city's most popular museums.
Hello.
Hello, sir. I meet Marcin Kaczorowski, one of the museum guides.
So, let's start our tour.
Let's go.
Let's go.
When the uprising started on August 1st, there were likely hundreds or even thousands of bunkers in the city.
Poles, without heavy equipment, had to take such bunkers as well. And it resulted in very heavy losses, as obviously Germans had lots of heavy machine guns, mortars, tanks, not to mention airplanes and even armored train.
The insurgents did not have uniforms. Instead, they wore white and red armbands to distinguish themselves from civilians.
But they come from private collections. There were different communities of different units, also abroad, and they collected all those armbands over the decades. And then, after the museum was created, they passed it on to us.
The Polish resistance during the Second World War is often called the underground state, and sometimes its operations were literally underground.
Tunnels were often the only way to move across the city without getting gunned down by the Nazis.
Filth up to your knees, and then you can feel your feet being sucked in by something, and you look at what's under your feet, and these are rotting corpses. So I would say
and every moment you can be killed from far away.
Yes, that's why it was extremely important to keep silent. You don't make any sound.
During the tour, I also meet the museum's deputy director, Paweł Ukielski.
We wanted to tell about the values that stood behind those mostly young people who decided to fight against total evil, against German totalitarian regime, to gain the freedom, democracy, independence.
The ordinary people that fought in the uprising, with time became legends. However, their stories often outlived the storytellers. Here in the Warsaw Uprising Museum, visitors get the chance to see these tales through the eyes of those who lived them. For TVP World, Ovidiusz Nicieja.
The premiere of Krystian Lada's opera, titled Dark, took place at the Warsaw Uprising Museum this week. This time, the spectacle's protagonists aren't the soldiers fighting on the barricades, but women. Each of them has been put in a completely different moment in history, yet they're all connected by the same need. The event was held on the occasion of the 80th anniversary of the outbreak of the Warsaw Uprising.
The three main characters live in different historic periods and places around the world. We meet Joanna living in Warsaw in 1944, her granddaughter Joanne living in present-day Paris, and Joan of Arc, the French hero from Rouen from several centuries ago. Each of these scenes is set in a different part of the museum.
I'm playing Joan. She's daughter of Polish immigrants, and actually she knows nothing about Warsaw Uprising, so we meet her in the point where she gets the package, and in the package there is a photograph which was made of her grandmother. Through this strange package, she's trying to go back to the past.
The opera's director is Krystian Lada, who has lived outside Poland for over 20 years. The decision to start this project was not an obvious one, as he himself says. After being asked questions such as, what does it mean to come from Poland? What does it mean to be Polish? He eventually accepted this challenge.
Dark, this is the title of the opera. It's a very interdisciplinary project. This is exactly what I believe is the core of opera. So bringing together visual arts with music, with theater, with dance, with lights, with poetry. That's the reason as well why I developed a script in which each of the female protagonists represents one of the art forms. So we have Agnieszka Grochowska, an actress playing Joan. We have Dobrawa Czocher, a musician, cellist, playing Joanna. Then we have Gabriela Legun as Jeanne d'Arc, Joan d'Arc. She's an opera singer. I've been listening to Julius Eastman's composition called The Holy Presence of Jeanne d'Arc, and probably this influenced my way of thinking. I can tell you that for some time already I found it fascinating, this idea of a city surrounded by the enemies, and I was thinking about Orléans in the times of Jeanne d'Arc, and at the same time Warsaw in 1944, and at the same time, in a bigger scale, thinking that we are living on a planet A and there's no planet B, and if we don't take care of this planet properly, then maybe there's no escape either. But I think they're all centered around the idea of, to some extent, femaleness, another type of heroism. So heroism that is not only related to killing or sacrificing your life for a big idea, but as well related, for instance, to supporting life, to carrying on life, to carrying on with life, even in circumstances that are terrible, like in the times of war.
It is a performance with an innovative formula, combining various art disciplines. Music plays an important role here, of course.
This is like the collage of very different music styles. So this is the challenge, how to make it work for the one story which is comprehensible, which can be seen and presented as a performance, and how to make all these people work together and understand what are we doing together. We play sometimes in the building, sometimes on the open air, sometimes we use mics, sometimes we only play acoustic or sing acoustically with movement, without movement. So there is all you can imagine in the music, starting from the very classical pieces for the choir to very experimental electronic music. So to make a line out of it, it was the biggest challenge.
Opera is a right medium to discuss this kind of questions because it operates not only with semantics or meanings, but very much with emotions. So it addresses our hearts, our stomachs as well, our bodies, and allows us to actually open up questions without the necessity to judge on something or to make very simple division between what was good, what was wrong, and that was the reason why I thought the opera might be a good form for this project.
We see now that it is written really especially for the celebration and for the anniversary. But yes, the sky is the limit. We could even play it in a different place and say the story as a universal story.
The performance, organized to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the Warsaw Uprising, is meant to be more than just a tribute to past Polish generations. It is also a journey through musical and theatrical conventions, where the creators experiment with form, structure, and space.
Having a hobby is great, but sharing a hobby with others is even better. Patrick Nachila is a classic car aficionado. A few years ago, he began organizing a small car meet in his hometown, and over the years, it has grown into a staple event for Polish car enthusiasts and the local community.
We are at a car show just outside of Warsaw. Car lovers and collectors gathered here today with their lowriders, old Chevys, and even little Polish Fiats. Let's talk to Patryk Nachila, the man behind the event.
Cars have been my hobby ever since I was a kid. I took after my dad, who was interested in cars, especially the classics, his whole life. When I was 15, I started to get into it as well. My passion is not just theoretical, as you can see. I've been organizing this car meet since 2017. We're holding it in Nowa Iwiczna because this is where I grew up. I have lived here my whole life and it's my favorite place on earth.
In 2019, Patryk received an award from the local government for excellence in the field of culture in recognition of his contribution to the Mazovia region.
I collect cars. I own 2 little Fiats, one Fiat Seicento, but I also have Japanese cars like Toyota Celica and my private Toyota Corolla. So yeah, I have a few. I couldn't pick a favorite. I love them all. The little Fiat is a small car, but on the upside, I get to fit more of them in my garage. It used to be a very impractical vehicle, but we all know you could pack a lot of people in there if needed. My dad drove a little Fiat like this to the North Cape. 4 people fit inside without any issues. Today, we'd see that as quite the struggle, but back then, people would make do with whatever they had. This particular little Fiat is slightly tuned up for more power. It looks a little different and is geared for racing. But I also have a base model in my collection, just a plain old little Fiat. I cannot fit inside anymore though, because the headlining is still there and I'm just too tall. This one here, it had the headlining removed so I can fit inside, but little Fiats are not exactly known for being roomy. The little Fiat was my first car. I was quite small when my dad bought one of these for our family. I grew up seeing it in our garage. I didn't sit behind the wheel until I learned how to drive, but I was able to care for it, wipe the dust off it, and so that's when the love started.
Patryk was not the only one to arrive at the car meet in a vehicle manufactured by FSO, the iconic car maker in Warsaw, which before 1989 used to make original Polish designs. Those who grew up in the 1980s and 90s still remember them fondly.
Przyjechałem dużym Fiatem, popularnie nazwanym. To już jest FSO 120.
I arrived in what's called the Big Fiat. It's the 125p model made in Poland in 1987. Why the Big Fiat? I was raised on cars like these. When I was a kid, there were no other options really besides big Fiats, little Fiats or a Polonaise. My parents had a Polonaise. I was raised with that thing. I learned the basics of car mechanics on a Polonaise and learned how to drive in a Polonaise. And it stayed with me. Today, I own a big Fiat, which is really just a joy. I take it to car meets, people walk up to me, and everyone has similar stories because there used to be at least one big Fiat in every family. Someone has a story of driving into Bulgaria for vacation, someone else traveled half of Europe in their Fiat. For many, it was their very first car. It's really nice. It's great that there are still so many aficionados of these old cars out here, especially since the FSO factory no longer exists, and we know they're the last of their kind. All we have left is to enjoy the relics of a time gone by.
Tyle. Po prostu to się ma.
Even though old Polish Fiats dominate the Nowa Iwiczna car meet for sentimental reasons, we still managed to meet a fan of the original Italian design.
Yes, I do have a Fiat 500, born in 1973 in Italy, of course. In Poland, I have it for like 3 years right now. And I bought it from a guy who bought it in Italy for his wife. But when the wife saw the car, she said, "Oh my gosh, it's not white, I want a white one." So this way I had the chance to buy it and have fun right now to drive with it. Oh, it's not tuned, I just had to change one small piece of the alternator because we need to have the lights on in Poland to drive the car. So I had to change this piece of mechanically speaking, but otherwise it's almost like new. My passion came from my friends actually, but indeed I was shortly before buying this one, I was in Italy, in Sicily, and there is a lot of old Fiat 500 in Italy running, and I fell in love with it. That's why I started to look for a Fiat 500 in Poland. It's not my only classic, I have a second one. It's a Corvette C3, so it's a completely different kind of car, but yes, I didn't say yet my last word, for sure. I still have one place in my garage. From spring till autumn, I drive it almost daily. Usually women have issues like, oh, what am I gonna wear today? My issues are, which car am I gonna drive today? But it's a lot of fun. I really have a lot of fun driving this one. It is making people smile. That's why I'm driving it daily.
We also met enthusiasts of car from across the pond.
That's a 1969 Impala, Chevy Impala, quite rare in Poland. Actually, that's my first car, first American V8, and I bought it 2 years ago and spent almost 1 year to rebuild it. But most of the parts, as interior and the color, is quite original, and it gives a lot of pleasure to drive or slow cruising around the city. You should listen the sound of the engine, of the exhaust, and that's what really guys love. During the weekends, we have beautiful weather, so we are using the opportunities to go around, to fill up the gas tank and just to spend a beautiful time. Also to meet with the friends or the spots like this one, because that's a great opportunity to exchange some knowledge and experience, and also to look at the beautiful cars around. And that's part of my passion, that's part of my life now. So it gives a lot of pleasure, and I think that's really worth it. When I saw it on picture, I didn't know what was the model, what was the year, but I said, that one, I would like to have this one car. The one and only in Poland. I mean, there are a lot of different Impalas, different years, but the only one with the sport coupe, I mean, the shape of the whole body, this is just the one.
After a few hours, the parking lot begins emptying and the cars go back to their garages. They will be meeting same time next year, but maybe in a different location.
Our car meets are growing more popular with each year. More and more cars are showing up. As you can see, we will have to find a new venue, because there just isn't enough space to park all these cars here anymore.
And with that, we conclude this edition of In Focus. Thank you for watching, and please stay with TVP World for all your latest news updates and comments. Goodbye for now.